Welcome to another episode of The Grace Between Us.
I am Lori.
And I am Nathan. And that almost sounded like it was with a question mark. I am Lori. Well, I think it's because we were just interrupted by a little one and found out we were accidentally live on Facebook. So this episode had a really weird, rocky start. If you were lucky enough to catch it, you might have been lucky enough to see me very frustrated at our son. But that's okay. Life happens. Well, this is episode number 5. I think it's number 5. I don't know. I forgot now. It is number 5. And today we're going to talk about something that...
Or 6.
Don't get me off track already. We already goofed up once today. We are going to talk about something a little difficult, something maybe rebranding something that's an old idea, and we're going to maybe an awkward term there, the Fortnite Complex. The Fortnite Complex. This idea that there are people in our society and culture that sometimes just can't seem to want to grow up.
No, they get stuck in the gaming or whatever, Facebook, social media, and they just get stuck in it and don't want to come out.
Well, they don't want to come out. They don't really want to connect with society. They feel like their tweets have more weight than they really do.
They don't want to go after and accomplish goals, do things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their life really is eat, sleep, maybe a job, maybe some kids in there, pay the mortgage, and then hope it all works out in the end. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, we were all made for so much more than that. In fact, we were made to actually grow up and take on real work and real responsibility. We weren't made just to play a video game or to sit around on social media.
Yeah, we were made to be world changers. And I love that term, and some people look at that and like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Why not?
That's right. We can. Individuals do change the world.
Right.
That's really what does happen. We can say, well, it's this movement or this. No, there's usually an individual that's spearheading the issue. There's usually an individual that's spearheading the effort. And the fact is that we come to a place where everyone wants to do something that matters. We want our lives to have real meaning.
And so many times our lives pass us by because we get caught up in some of these just consuming activities. Mm-hmm. And then we stop and look back and look at all the time wasted and think, why didn't I do more with the time that I had?
Absolutely. One of the things that brought us to this topic today was there's a gentleman who was trending on Twitter, and he was a YouTube star, and he's missing, and he's dealt with some emotional things. He's dealt with some mental health issues. And I'm not sure if it came out yet, but there was a lot of speculation that he might have committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And then there's the gentleman who it was his anniversary of, I can't remember if it was his birthday or his anniversary of his death, who also took his life, and Anthony Bourdain. And these two individuals had fame. Mm-hmm. One of them had specifically a lot of fortune as well, traveled the world, made a lot of money doing what he loved to do, yet still felt empty on the inside. And I think, not that he didn't do something, and not that some of these individuals weren't doing something that of merit, mm-hmm. but I think in the end, they were having a hard time really saying, I did something that mattered.
Right.
I did something that mattered.
We want our lives to have meaning. And so many times we are doing things out of habit, out of just because we enjoy it, but it doesn't have true meaning and give our life meaning.
No, it doesn't give us a sense of fulfilling potential. We a lot of times we'll say, hey, but I have kids right now. And I got to get these kids grown up and out of the house, and then maybe my life can matter or have more meaning. And the problem with tomorrow is tomorrow never comes.
Right. And you even have people in those moments where they have the kids at home consumed with that. And that's really important. You should spend time with that. But it doesn't mean that you can't have purpose alongside of that.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we see, especially empty nesters after their kids have gone on to college or gotten married, start having their own, and they have a home that's empty. And everything they did was put into their children. They put everything into their children, the family, where, after they're gone, it's like, what's my purpose now?
Yeah. And unfortunately, that is a different type of Fortnite complex. Mm-hmm. It's just another place you're burying your head and saying, well, eventually I'll get to my purpose.
Right.
Eventually I'll get to the destiny that God has for me. And the fact is, man, we want to come to a place where we really know what we're called to do and go out and do it and change the world.
Right.
And we're living in a generation where we're kind of on the tail end of the Gen Xers, maybe depending on how you classify us. We could be those millennials, right? That's kind of a bad word, bad term right now, but we could be those millennials. And the funny thing is that we're part of this YouTube generation. And the YouTube generation really does want to change the world. The YouTube generation really does want to see something change about the world they live in. And we have that potential.
Right.
We have that push, but it's not going to come without work. And
No.
in fact, it reminds me of one of my favorite Bible passages because it's a Bible passage that's always taken out of context.
Matthew 7:5.
Matthew 7:5. Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Says, "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you can see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye."
Yeah, and so these are the words of Jesus, and they're like famous words of Jesus, and they're always misused. So Jesus, you got to think, was this rabbinical teacher. He's this rabbi, and he taught kind of that rabbinical tradition, so he was a little sarcastic. This is a very sarcastic phrase. This is a very sarcastic kind of word picture. And you hear folks even during the election cycle specifically, use it for their political party. Well, don't come after my guy until your guy's correct. And, it wasn't even about that. Jesus was saying, get your stuff in order before you have the audacity to go around and try to make sure the world's in order.
Most people
Get your
don't do
house in
that.
order first. No, and we want to change the world. We
Right.
know we have a destiny and a purpose. We feel that unfulfilled sense in our culture. Yet there's a lot of work that goes into getting you fixed so that you can be a catalyst to fix the world.
Right. And, we all have fixing to be done in our
right.
life. And, to think that you don't have that is arrogant, and it's not true. We all have
not
things that
true.
we need to move forward in and grow from. And when we are able to grow through those things, it helps us to be even more of an impact as a person.
Absolutely. You have a much greater impact. See, the fact is, the responsibility for change is always on the individual
Right.
and the individual's actions. I'd love to say it's just a collective. Oh, if we get this group right, we can fix the world. If we get
Right.
that group right, we can change the world. And that's just another way of othering people.
Right. No
If
one
that
wants-
other group will fix themselves, if we can fix that other group.
Don't tell me I'm a problem.
Well, that's right. Don't tell me it's
Yeah.
my stuff that I need to deal with.
Right.
Let's go after your stuff. And what's that cliched statement, right? My sin on me looks like it
Oh.
needs to be forgiven. My sin on you looks like it needs to be judged.
Right. That's a hard
Mirroring
one.
what was Jesus said in Matthew. That a lot of times that's how we approach the world.
Yeah,
And it's not a great stance to see change happen.
It's easy to see and look at someone else's sin and, judge that. But, when we have issues we need to work through, we get offended when, someone points that out.
Absolutely.
It's so funny how it cannot be reversed. Otherwise, we're just, we can't even talk about it.
And that's the thing, right? If you don't fix yourself, then how are we going to bring a fix to society?
You can't.
Absolutely, you can't.
It's simple. I solved it.
Well, there you go. We're done. She solved it. We're done. We're 7 minutes in. Lori fixed the world.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Awesome. That's because she's perfect.
No, I'm not.
No, not even close. Trust me.
You need to say I am.
Okay, I'm sorry. You are. You're perfect for me.
Okay.
And that's all that matters. But the fact is, we have to come to a place where we say, okay, I'm going to get my stuff in order, and then I'm going to go conquer the world.
Sure.
So we've become accustomed to skipping that step, right? That's why there's 14-year-olds who are on YouTube giving relationship advice with 5 million views. Never been married, but they sure as heck know how to tell you.
Someone's listening.
Exactly. That's the problem, though. Someone is listening. We have folks giving advice on YouTube and other outlets, and they've never been there and done that. They haven't even spent the money to buy the T-shirt.
No, it's easy to give advice and act like you know what you're doing, but you can do more harm than help.
A lot of times you can do a lot more harm than good. And that's the problem with much of how we consume information today. We're looking for strategy rather than looking to our true north, which is kind of where I want to come to next. If we're going to change the world, if we're going to get out of our Fortnite funk, right? Get our head out of the sand, become part of society, do something that matters, eventually we have to set our true north.
Yeah. A lot of times we don't want to set high goals or set expectations because we're afraid that they won't happen.
That's right.
What if they do happen?
That's right. So this is always a common misconception for me when we talk to people. I always wonder, okay, what if you went all out?
Right.
What if, okay, you're going to be an artist, and we know that most artists don't get paid very well, especially during their lifetime. I mean, some of the best classical artists that you can study were pretty much impoverished their entire life. There are some that made it, but most of them had no money to speak of and definitely no fame or fortune. And then their art just blows up at some point or another. And the funny thing is, if that's your true north, if it's art, right? If God's gifted you and said, man, I want to inspire you into the art world. If you set that as your goal, what's the downside?
Yeah.
You create a bunch of amazing art that eventually somebody consumes and says, this is awesome. You create a bunch of amazing art that maybe in your lifetime you get paid for.
Right.
You create a bunch of amazing art that, guess what? You hit the top echelons of the art world and you're known around the world. But where's the downside?
You know, a lot of people see, you know, they set a goal and they're afraid that they won't hit it. But what if you even hit part of that?
That's right.
Isn't it way better than hitting nothing?
That's right. If your true north is influence or money or finance or whatever, and you might say, well, that's a shallow true north. No, it's not if that's what you're called to do.
Right.
If you're called to be in business and make money, that's just as noble as being an artist who is called to create beautiful works of art. We're just wired differently.
Sure.
And if your goal, let's say it's a money goal, your goal is to make $1 million next year, and you say that's an impossible goal, I don't know if I can set it, but you do, and then let's say you hit half that, 500,000. You really going to be all that bummed?
No.
Now, you might be bummed if it happens 6 years in a row and you're really trying to get to that
Sure.
$1 million mark. But let's be honest with ourselves. You hit a high goal, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, man, look what I was able to accomplish. We have to figure out how to set our true north. Now, we as Christians know our true north only comes in God.
Yes.
It only comes as we set those high value goals, but those come as we set it in the person of Christ in our life.
But don't afraid to set goals that are big. Don't don't
Yep.
be afraid to set them bigger than you could even imagine.
Pick the highest goal you can set. Find out what that is. Something that scares you, knocks you to the ground when you think about it. It's just one of those things that scares you so much it actually keeps you up at night. That's the kind of goal you need to set, to find out where your honest to God true north is.
And sometimes, we hear comments like that, and maybe, you're in a phase of life where you don't think you can put time to complete the goal that you
That's right.
have. It doesn't mean you don't go do the things that you're supposed to do in those moments. Like being a parent is very important, but
Yes.
it doesn't mean you can't
neglect
go
your
after.
kids.
No, you can't go after these goals too. I feel like God puts us in a place where we can go after both of them at the same time. And maybe there's times when you can put more effort towards, your true north at other times, but we have to understand that just because right now you can't maybe put as much time as you could, don't neglect it and not go after it.
That's right. Don't just put it on a shelf and hope that someday you get to it. Like right now, we're doing this podcast and it's version number 2 for the night because it got all goofed up as we talked about at the beginning. And we're doing it late at night. Kids are in bed because this is the time we have to do it.
This is when we can.
Yeah, this isn't the optimal time. And we're both tired. I might be smiling, but that's out of delirium.
I'm hoping the filters on the video help me
Yeah,
look better.
we have the lights on to wash away our bags, and we washed our face and combed our hair, and we've got maybe shorts and pajama bottoms on underneath the jackets. Don't tell anyone. But the fact is, this is the time that works for us, so
Yeah.
we're getting it done. See, Nietzsche said it. And you might not be a fan of Nietzsche, but he's a really impactful phrase here. He said, "He who has a why can bear any how." And I love that statement. He who has a definitive why can literally bear any how. Any way means that you need to get the job done. You can figure out how to do it.
What is your why?
That's right. And that why's got to be impactful enough that it gets you out of the Fortnite funk, gets you off the couch, gets you out of that empty nest syndrome, and gets you into life doing something that matters.
Right. You have to go after it. And you
That's
have to
right.
find that why, because without the why, you're just going to sit tight.
You're going to
and
sit
wait.
and flounder
Keep
and wait
waiting.
and hope it happens. And then wonder why it happens to your neighbor and not for you.
Right.
See, one of the things I think we've become accustomed to in our culture is the microwave kind of easy mentality, right? If I can't go to McDonald's and grab it quick, then it must not be worth it.
Sure.
And you know where this comes the truest is with our Wi-Fi. When our Wi-Fi is like a split second slower than we anticipate, we're MFing our phone.
No, we're not.
Some people do. I wouldn't do that.
We had to do dial-up.
We had to do
back in
dial-up,
the day,
but think about it today. If your Wi-Fi, if your cell signal is just a little bit slower, that download's a little bit slower, that song skips just a little bit, you're ready to cancel your plan. You're ready to scream and yell at some tech on the phone and figure out what's wrong with your service. That shows our impatience.
Well, and going back to your, stating that a lot of times we watch people and we think it happens faster for that person, and why isn't it happening for me? Social media doesn't really give us a good idea of what people are really doing behind the scenes.
No, they don't.
Everybody puts up these high points. You don't know what they're doing and how hard they're trying and what they're going after. So to make an assumption based on that is going to keep you on that couch.
It's going to keep you on the couch. It's going to keep you from actually doing something of value and a merit to really see something change in your life and in the world around you. It brings us to, excuse me, got a little hiccup there. It brings us to a couple points. And the next one, that if you're going to get out of that Fortnite funk, right? If you're going to overcome that empty nest syndrome, if you're going to get your head out of the sand and do what God's called you to do, I think it starts with having an encounter with God.
Yeah.
Like, take time, find a way, get to know him, like face to face, know who he is. Like, this is a Christian podcast. If you're not in the God thing and that's not your sphere, cool, that's on you. But I'm gonna encourage you as a pastor, because that's what I do. I'm gonna encourage you as a pastor, find a way to get that connection with God on a real level, that you feel that encounter.
He will help you find that why, and that desire
right.
that you have, and what he's given you the capacity to do.
That's right. We read stories like in Acts chapter 9 of Paul and his road to Damascus story, where he gets knocked off his horse, has a real encounter with God, changes his whole trajectory in life. We don't need to go on the details of that. If you're not familiar with it, go ahead and read it. But Paul really is an example for us that if we have a real encounter, we get knocked off our horse. If we have a real encounter with God, like, there's something going to change. He will mess you, the stank, up. He will change something dramatically in your life. And that's important.
So important.
That we come to a place where we understand, okay, I don't want to be in the Fortnite funk forever.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the Peter Pan syndrome forever. I got to grow up eventually and be who I'm called to be, shoulder the responsibility that God's giving me, right? Empty nest syndrome, get away from that, get away from the woe is me. I've got to be who God called me to be. Well, how do I do it? Well, I know when I meet him face to face, that's going to give me the inspiration.
Yeah. Get that encounter with God, and then you have to pray.
And then you have to pray. That's number 2 point here is you've got to learn how to pray.
Yes.
Not just generically and say, hey, throw a couple prayers up and God, I hope you caught them, sign of the cross, whatever, and get out the door. That's wishing. That's simply wishing. That's just saying, man, I hope it works out someday. I hope so.
I'm not going to do anything to try.
I'm not going to work it out on my own merit. I'm just going to hope it works out.
Maybe that sounds harsh to you, but, unfortunately, we have to take action. We have to do something for, these things to happen in our life.
And sometimes it's the little things. Sometimes it's, okay, I don't want my life to be in the same stuck pattern it's in, so that I can get onto what God called me to. I don't care if it's painting a wall in your house, moving a picture. I don't care if it's taking a different route to work. Do something to see something change.
Right.
And then on top of that, figure out how to pray and say, okay, God, what's my next step?
Right.
Like, you might take that first action step on your own. You might do something of merit on your own, but then the next step needs to be guided by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
What do I do next?
Well, he will guide you. Sometimes we don't want to listen. So
that's
a really hard one, because we don't want to listen. We want to think that we know everything, and that, we maybe don't have to do everything necessary to get there. That it's just going to be thrown into our lap.
That's right.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue, man. Acts chapter 16, verse 25 talks about the idea of Paul and Silas, and they were in prison. And it says that about midnight, Paul and Silas, they were praying and singing songs to God. And if you know the story real well, at that time, the jail began to shake, and they were let loose. They're literally let out of prison because they decided to pray and sing. Listen, they learned the power of prayer.
Yeah.
In a funk, just totally beaten down by their circumstances, literally chained to the wall.
Yeah.
And so many of us feel that way in our Fortnite complex.
Yeah, we get stuck.
We feel like there's no way out.
Right.
Listen, you got to learn how to pray, learn how to manage that in a different way so that you can get out of that funk. And the next one here, and the thing that we're probably going to end on here pretty quick. This isn't a real long podcast. Hopefully it doesn't go too much, over that 20-minute marker. But there's a big issue when we talk about a particular word, a D word, in church and in culture. We've so misused it. And for us, that's that word disciple. Yeah. Learn to become a disciple. It just means to be a student. Man, we need mentors in our life. You need to be a Bible disciple. You need to be a church type disciple, a disciple after the person of Christ. But you need to be a disciple in some area that God's leading and guiding you to.
Yeah, and you have to, find people that you respect, mentors in your life that you look up to, and that honestly What I look for is people that are doing more than I'm doing.
Absolutely.
That will push me. That'll push me to do more with my life and to go after the goals that God has put in my heart.
Absolutely. Like, you got to find somebody who's been there and done that. Someone who's scaled the mountain. There's some folks in our life that we look to, and they have so scaled the mountain. It's proof positive in their life. They have just taken off. God has done some amazing things.
Right.
They have worked through challenges and difficulties.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to have those conversations because it really inspires you.
Yeah, it absolutely inspires you. What God has done in their life is a huge testimony to what he can do in our lives.
Absolutely. I would say this: if you're going to be a disciple, if you're going to learn how to be a student, first thing first, find someone and ask them if you can meet with them at least once a month. Find them, ask them, get in their face. Hey, you have something I want. You have the marriage I want.
Yeah.
You have the business I want.
Yep.
You have the influence I want. You have the money I want. That's a
Yeah.
big one. Don't shy away from that one.
Right.
Maybe someone's excelling in the space that you want to excel in. Maybe you just have the talent that I want. And
Right.
I want to learn how to be more talented. Find someone in an area who's doing what you want. Hey, if you're going to be a Fortnite gamer and you're going to make millions, you better go find someone to be a disciple under.
Yeah.
Someone who really knows the game. Listen, and then learn to ask the right
Yeah,
questions.
you got to ask him, what should you be reading?
Yes,
You
that's
know?
a big one.
If you're reading,
that's probably my favorite.
he's going to talk.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When you're reading, it's going to encourage you and it's going to increase your intelligence. It's going to help you understand more and more about what you want out of life.
And likelihood is, if this person is where you want to be, they've read the books.
Yeah, they know what to
They've
do.
read the manual,
Yeah.
right? And so whatever they recommend, even if it might seem like an offshoot idea, maybe a book that you're not connecting with, you're like, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit the context. They have something to offer. Trust them.
Yeah.
The next one there is how should I be praying?
Yeah.
It kind of falls in line with our last point. But what should they be praying about?
Yeah, a lot of times we get stuck in the same prayers over and over and over. And a lot of times we're not asking God to help us, transform our lives into what he would have for us.
That's true. And a good mentor, someone that you can really sit and learn under, be a student of, again, they've been there and done that. They'll teach you how to pray.
Well, and they'll notice, certain situations or how you respond to things, which will help you analyze and change and move forward in your life.
That's right. They'll look at those dark spots, those blind spots that we all have, and they'll
We
be
got
able to
lots
help
of blind
us.
spots.
We have lots of blind spots.
I help
trust
him
me.
see his.
I try to help her see hers. I'm not as good. I'm not as tactful in how I point them out.
I'm much more tactful.
She is much more tactful. It's funny. A few years ago, Lori said, "You look like a bum. You're not dressing real well." And I'm paraphrasing. She was much nicer than that. And so she kind of gave me this push to you need to learn how to dress better. And so I've been dressing better.
I think he took it harder than I probably even said it.
I did. I
don't
thought, let's go buy some 3-piece suits. I'll fix this.
He wanted to
issue.
buy one a week.
I did. I did. I want to tailor it out, man.
Now.
From cuffs to feet, tailor this thing down, and I wanted to look sharp. And so I got in this mode of maybe dressing a little differently. But really, what it was a conversation between the two of us. Hey, why are you in a funk? Why are you in a V-neck and a hoodie all the time? You
All
slob.
the time. And a book bag.
And
Are
a
you in college?
backpack. Yeah.
What?
Are you, 22? Get out of there. You're going to be 40 in not too long. You better learn how to dress the part.
Yeah.
And the hard part is sometimes you need a voice like that. Now, this was, between us and a spousal relationship, but we've also had that in a mentoring relationship. We've had folks look at us as mentors and say, you need to fix this. This ain't working.
Even laugh at comments we've made,
Even
you
laugh.
have no idea,
And we could be real specific here. We won't. But particularly, and not laughed at in a bad way, but laughed at in a good way. Like, you're young, you're dumb, you need to get your stuff together. And eventually you're going to have the responsibility that you're asking for. And you're going to see life a little differently.
You do.
And oh my goodness, did we ever.
But that third question you should ask a mentor would be, how should I be changing?
That's true.
Because we all have things we need to move forward in our life. We
Yep.
need to change in our life. And a lot of times we don't ask for that feedback. Having those hard conversations, hearing things that we don't necessarily want to hear.
That's right.
Are those moments that can really change and turn our life onto where we want it to be.
Well, and that's a big thing for me, right? That becomes a huge obstacle when we talk about being a disciple.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, but I don't know about you who are listening. I don't know that I always want to be confronted with this needs to change. Most of the time I want to be told, you're awesome. Don't change a thing.
He has every reason why it shouldn't change, especially
I
if
do.
I mention it.
pretty good at trying to filter my own world there.
If he wasn't a pastor, he'd be an amazing politician
or lawyer. We'll see.
Lawyer. I don't know.
But you know, who knows? Lawyers lie too much, maybe not. But the funny thing about this issue is, you know, we've told a generation for a long time, you're okay just the way you are. And that's a load of crap. You're not okay just the way you are.
I don't want to hear that.
I know. Nobody wants to hear that. You're not okay the way you are. Here's two things wrong with that statement. If you're okay the way you are, then that means life doesn't get any better than what you're experiencing right now. And if that's the case, life sucks, and it's going to suck for a long time.
I don't want that.
So nobody
I don't
wants
want to believe that.
No, the fact is we want to be better than what we are.
Right.
We want to be better than who we are.
Right.
We don't want to stay the same.
And we can change.
We can change. So we need to get this 1980s, 90s mentality out the door, this pseudo science idea that, you know, we're all mess ups. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay. You're okay just the way you are. No, you're not. No, you're not. You need to change. The fact is, does Jesus love you the way you are? 100%. Does he love you way too much to keep you there? Absolutely.
Right.
And that's the fact that a really good mentor, if you're a student, if you're a disciple, they will pull that out of you, and pulling that out of you, they will pull you out of the dungeon where you play Fortnite 24/7.
And don't be offended. Gosh, this is not here to beat you up. This is here to help encourage you and spur you on for growth.
That's right. This is to encourage you for growth. Listen, if you got anything out of this podcast, which we hope you did, we hope you gleaned something. And if you're in one of those phases, right? You're in the Fortnite funk. Maybe you're in that Peter Pan stage, not wanting to grow up. Maybe you've given your life to kids and you can't see where your potential is supposed to really be. Maybe you had a career and it failed,
right,
and it wasn't what you thought it should be. And God's trying to reinvigorate in you a spark that you can go change the world. Listen, follow some of these steps.
Right.
I promise you'll get through it.
You won't be disappointed.
No, you won't. You'll take life at a new angle. You'll take life at a new hill. And I guarantee you'll be excited about what God will put in front of you.
Right.
Man, we love that you guys are a part of this. We'd love for you to comment, to share, to like. Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube or whatever one of those social media outlets. Make sure you connect with us. You can follow us at The Grace Between Us on all of our social outlets. We are excited to be doing this with you and on this journey with you. If you have a suggestion about what we should talk about,
below.
Put that below. We would love to
consider them.
We'd love to get it. Man, we had a suggestion the other day that we'll consider taking up, and it'd be a hard topic to really tackle. So you'll see in a few days whether or not that's what we take up. We love doing this. We love connecting with you, and we will see you next time.